Oh, Saishwaraya Vidmahe Sathya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Sathya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Sathya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sai Ram. It's wonderful to spend every Sunday, at least for us in Singapore, our evenings. For some of you, it's your mornings, to be in a satsang that involves Sai Bhagavatam, and in a manner that all of you have experienced in close proximity and continue to experience by applying all that you have learned. And we are so very fortunate for all alumni coming in and participating together in this satsang. And in this series, we have Brother Ravi Mariwalla today, all the way from the US. It's your morning. Thank you so very much for being with us. And I'm going to give the honors of introducing you to Brother Shastri.
Sairam, everyone, Sairam, Brother Ravi, for accepting and ready to share with all of us. More than a formal introduction, just I would like to say how I had interaction with Brother Ravi as hostler there. When we joined in grade 11, I still remember Brother Ravi was like all the time in meditation in the veranda there, a very serious and ardent, I would say, disciple of Swami. And I still remember him for introducing me personally a lot of books, Illusions, Ben-Hur, or maybe Autobiography Yogi. So I considered himself as a yogi who had actually guided somebody like me who had no introduction to Swami. Other day I was sharing, I asking my dad what mean by higher learning after I saw Anantapur campus board. So that was my background, but Brother Ravi stood for all of us, like a guide for us in Parthi there and through our years. Truly, he was an all-rounder, and he had really pined for Swami's proximity and being, in his, I would say, divine, closeness and the divine presence there. I think he had almost more than 2 decades close proximity to Swami, apart from his studies and then working in hospital. I think we have a lot to listen from him. And over to Brother Ravi.
Wonderful, wonderful, so very wonderful. This is how each one of us remembers a person, and I'm as excited as you are to listen to you, Brother Ravi, and all of us. So please take us on this journey where we have, I would say, a specific message coming from the Lord through you. So let's listen into Brother Ravi.
Sairam, thank you so much, Brother Venkat and Brother Shastri, and thank you for having me. Can you hear me clearly, or should I put on a headphones? Am I clear enough?
Perfect. Absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. So many thanks to Bhagwan for having taken us all into his presence. Every time I'm about to say near to him, I hesitate because Swami years back created this difference between, and I used to think Radio Sai is so clever to bring this analogy out, but then I read a discourse of Swami where he actually describes the difference between near and dear. So even that credit goes back to Swami himself. And the way Swami describes it in Telugu is Daggarga Unnevalu versus Priyamga Unnevalu. Those who are close and those who are, dear. So, that kind of summarizes Swami's way of working with all of his, disciples, his students, his devotees. That when he gave you something, he made sure that you started pining for a higher level. As soon as he brought you little bit into his proximity, he made you aware that there is a lot more for you to even aspire for. And he opened those horizons up right there. So today I'm going to try to share with you some thoughts about what seems like an abstract topic, but it is something that is engulfing all of us. It is a question that all of us have to confront, have to face, and that is, what is the secret of our search? And that search that you and I embarked on when we first felt that those inner pinings for a higher purpose. And in a letter in 1973, Swami has beautifully described this. Again, all credit goes back to Swami. Swami described this in a beautiful letter where he talked about this concept of spiritual hunger. And Swami said that the spiritual hunger is the cause for the restlessness of all men and women. And that though we think that we are pining for something, gradually as we mature, and it doesn't have to mean that you embark on a spiritual path, but every human being basically is walking that path and feeling that restlessness. And that is what drives us to seek and search for something higher, something beyond what we are living in every day. And I think many times that was Bhagwan's innate purpose. Through the means of, various leelas, through the means of various interactions, he took us, as I often like to say, through the 5 A's. The first A was attraction. The second A was getting our attention, because otherwise our attention, we were restless. And after he attracted us with whatever means, fulfilling our desires, we went to him with our lists, or our parents dragged us there, or our SSC teachers inspired us to go there. But he initially succeeded in attracting us. And then from there onwards, he tried to get our attention by appealing to us, to our personalities, to our dispositions. Somebody was interested in Seva, another person in speaking, a third person in music, a fourth person in, teaching in a school, or whatever it is. He set up a mechanism to pull each one of us through establishing multiple ways to, magnetize us. And then after he attracted us and got our attention, he made us feel the need for us to get aligned with him, because we knew that we are attracted to him, but we are not in alignment with him. And I'll tell you one quick example. Once I was asked to speak by Bhagwan, and I was at that time, like Brother Shastri said, I was just like teenagers and adolescents, you explore a lot of things, right? The world is new for you, and God forbid you get into bad company, but if you get into good company, you then explore that. So being in Swami's presence, being with seniors like Sonam ji, Hariharan ji, and Jagdish Rajan, I remember how much I looked up to all of these brothers. And many times when some relatives from my family would ask me, hey, is there any sort of ragging or any problem in the Sai hostel? I said, no, ragging, it's impossible, because after Swami, I feel so inspired by seeing my seniors, the level of sacrifice, the level of commitment they had, the way they were leading from the front, the way they would even greet us who were much junior to them in age and seniority, would make us feel that we want to be like them. That is not a small thing, brother, because in this age and day, who is it that you can trust? And that is how Swami established his whole mission, like I like to say, by word of mouth, not by social media, not by calling quantity and volume. So in healthcare today in the US, there is this big motto, this big slogan, which says, they want to make the transition from volume to value. And often I smile when I hear that term, because Swami, if you read his earlier discourses, even in the 50s, you will hear this whole thing about, why barrels of donkey milk, 1 ounce of cow's milk is enough. So Swami was all about value, not about volume. And that's why even today when my children, they go to a public school here, they ask me, Papa, we have some 1,500 students. How many students were there in Baba's college? And I would say that we were, 250 in the boys in the college, and then about 150 or less in the secondary school. And they say, that's all. And that's when we realize that why Swami took that care, why he brought a small number of students there so that we could see him properly, so that we didn't need any third-hand description of Swami, so that we all had the opportunity to give him letters on our own, so that we could touch his feet when he passed us. When our parents came to Puttaparthi, we could directly tell him, Swami, our parents have come, please talk with us. So as we look back, we realize the value of that whole mechanism, that whole setup that Swami created. And brothers and sisters, that is not a small thing, because that is the means by which he is going to build the architecture of his mission. And, I remember that in one speech that Brother Victor Kanu gave, he said how fortunate we are that, a lot of people will read about Jesus in the Bible. They will read about Shirdi Sai Baba and Satcharita, and that's it. But for you and me, Shri Sathya Sai Baba is not a fantasy. He is not a mythology character. He is uppermost in our mind because we saw him, we felt him. We felt the benevolence and the elevation of being in his presence. And many of us, got to see some of the things that Swami did in the 40s and the 50s. Swami was so kind that he replayed them for later devotees. As you all know, common example is the fact that, my mother, she was fortunate. She visited Parthi, and I think she saw the last Vibhuti Abhishek. My mom, she was fortunate. She used to go 14 times a year to Parthi from Mumbai. And see, that in itself creates so much bhakti in us, that how did Swami inspire so much bhakti in people, right? And she saw that Vibhuti Abhishek. Of course, Swami never recreated the Vibhuti Abhishek, but we have it on YouTube. But Swami recreated the whole beauty of the lingam being manifest from his body. And I remember that in the later years, when in 1 year, when I was seated there in front of him, he manifests 2 lingams from his body. And it was so painful for us to see that, because Swami was, showing that level of difficulty in bringing the lingam out. And then I realized that not only are these beautiful leelas being replayed, but the devotees' reactions are also being replayed. Because I read that it is the devotees in those days who said to Swami, Swami, you please stop this. We cannot watch you going through this process of bringing the lingam out. So, sometimes we think that the purpose of the Leela is to show the Leela. But if you look at the reaction to the Leela, the response to the Leela, sometimes I'm confused. Is it the response to the Leela that he wants to create, which is more important than the Leela itself? Because he wants us to be feeling people. He wants us not to just take things as they are. I remember with a lot of pain in my heart that one day Swami was going from the interview room to the garages, where the cars were parked, and there were very few students there that day. And I had the chance, I counted, because in those days we would count such things. Why? Because we would write to our parents. In those inland letter cards, we would write to our parents. They would be hungry to know what happened with Swami. So I remember one day, and I feel very ashamed to say this, but this is a confession I need to make. Swami passed me. There was nobody. There were hardly some 25 boys there. They had some duties allocated. So Swami passed me, and I remember touching Swami's feet some 29 times. In the course of that 45 minutes or so, until Swami got tired of me touching his feet. So it was not like he was standing, he was passing, and then he would slow down, and then we would touch his feet. And then after 29 times I counted, then Swami looked at me and he said, hey, which means now you stop. You are counting. I know the number of times you have touched my feet. Now enough. And I didn't know. I thought, thinking back to the old days, I better stop now. I'll get some shock or something from Swami's feet. So those are the beautiful, cherished memories that bubble up in our hearts. And coming to this point about Swami replaying the things that we feel we might have missed, all of you know that in the late 70s, this professor from University of Arizona, Dr. Frank Baranowski, came to Bhagwan, and he actually did not want to come to Bhagwan. And see, we sometimes don't look at these things and we think these things don't matter, but these things are the most important. How did we come to Bhagwan? What was the way in which he pulled us there? We have to analyze those things a little bit. We have to examine them, because in those lies certain truths which will awaken us. So Dr. Frank Baranowski came there to investigate the aura. He was doing this research for the Kirillian Institute, and he had been part of the core team that had developed these Kirillian photographs. You can read on the internet. There's not much on that, but I'm so happy to tell you that I don't have third-hand information. I saw Dr. Frank Baranowski, and I read about his fascinating story that he went around, measured the aura of many yogis, but he was very dissatisfied, because when he measured their auras, he saw 3 or 4 layers. And then he said, I thought the yogis in India would have very powerful auras. And then when he spoke to some of these yogis, they said, no, this spirituality is now degraded in these places. If you want to see true spirituality, you go to one Sathya Sai Baba in a small village in South India called Puttaparthi. So he finds out, and he lands up he finds out that Swami is not in Puttaparthi. He comes to a white field, Vrindavan, and he walks in with his bag and everything. And from a distance, as he is watching Swami giving a discourse, he is very much attracted. And he goes and sits there. And then in seconds, he starts to get up. And our Sevadala are very upset with him, because this man, this tall giant of a man, is just now sat down there and he's now starting to get up. So they think he's very restless. But he pushes them aside and he starts walking, and everybody is very confused. And he keeps walking. And he goes to the end of the railway station, which is about 1 furlong away. 1 furlong is about 1/4 mile. And there he stops and he gives up. And brothers, this is for me one of the most awakening aspects. Because why did he stop? What did he give up searching for? When he came close to Swami, he was able to notice something phenomenal, something different than what he had seen with all these yogis and Mahatmas and saints that he had read about. He saw that there were 9 layers of Swami's aura. And as Swami was gesticulating when he was giving that talk, he saw this aura being flung and going and hitting outside boundaries of what he was able to see. And then he said, no, I need to investigate this. And breaking all the rules, and that Sevadal was trying to make him sit, he was so focused on his self-examination of the truth. And that is what we need to do. Swami gave us these leelas, showed us these glimpses. The question is not counting which leelas you saw versus which leelas happened to Brother Raja Reddy or to some other great person. But the question is, what did you do with those leelas? What did you remember them? So the Vedas describe to us this whole process. It's there for us. Just like there is darshan, sparshan, sambhashan, like that there is a process. Swami said, you have to do internalization. You have to take it within you. You have to do manasik puja. And anyway, coming back to what Brother Frank Baranowski saw, he saw that certain aura colors of Swami were extending to the Whitefield railway station. And then from there onwards, because it was an open landscape, he could see that the aura that originated at Swami's physical body, he saw purple, he saw green, he saw gold, he saw many different colors, and it's all there for you to read. But then he saw certain of those auras, those fine cosmic energies extending very far out into the horizon. And the beauty of the person who inquires in the presence of the Sai Avatar is you just have to ask and you will get it. So as a kid, I had read this book, and then I always felt, so Swami sent Dr. Frank Baranowski to the college one day morning to speak to us. But I was very restless. I said, he showed us slides. In those days, today PowerPoint everybody has, even I'm going to show you some. But in those days, this was 83, 84. Dr. Frank Baranowski showing slides was something big. We were all, wow. But I was very unhappy. I said, that's all I'm going to see. And then you won't believe it. 2 days later, we were having dinner. And, we had a huge dining hall. Brothers Jagdish Rajan, Dhirendra Sharma, Shastri, all these people know it. They would repurpose that dining hall. We used to be sitting on the mats below and eating. They would convert it suddenly into a hall for meetings. And sometimes these meetings would be inspirational, sometimes they would be instructional. That evening when we were eating dinner, we got word that Swami has sent Dr. Frank Baranowski to the hostel. And I knew this cannot be some ordinary talk, because just 2 days in the morning, he had spoken with us. And I was not disappointed. Now, Dr. Frank Baranowski brought some tools. And we are all like that, right? We have the mantra of Sai Ram, but we are not happy. We still want yantra. And that is what we got from Frank Baranowski that day, yantra. He brought some devices and he gave us a talk. We were all of some 350 boys. We lost the crowd that was sitting in aisles in an orderly manner, suddenly came up close to him. We were all surrounding him, and he took the mic out of the stand, and Swami's beautiful altar with 3 massive photos, where Swami used to sit there so many times when he came to the hostel. You can imagine, brothers, it is not the Bible, it is not the words of Luke and Matthew and John that matter today. Why are there so many churches? It is not the words of Christ. It is the presence of Christ 2000 years back that lives on today and inspires so many people to think of that Jesus Christ. It's not his words, it is his presence. And that presence, if you recreate through these memories, that presence will create a stirring of inner joy in your heart, which will then make these questions about what is spiritual progress, what is my search, all those will just fall aside, because you know then that these external memories, these images in your mind, in my mind, are the key to turn the lock, to open the spring of inner joy. And we are not trying to remember Frank Baranowski or the hostel dining hall, not at all. We're trying to remember the magic of Sai, the magic of Sri Sathya Sai. So as Frank Baranowski spoke in that haloed setting, which is imprinted in our hearts forever, he said, come on, I want to now do an experiment. And he asked the warden to get up. And he said, you imagine the most dear sight that you have seen in your life, which is like a scenery or a river or something. And the warden tried to imagine. And Dr. Frank Baranowski put that tool, it was like a huge walkie-talkie with a long antenna. And the antenna was stiff and straight. And as the warden, he was a tall gentleman, as the warden started thinking about and memorizing that event or whatever he was thinking, I'm not in his mind, that antenna started tilting outwards away from the warden's body. And then it tilted, and as Frank Baranowski walked 7 or 8 feet, then the antenna became straight again. Then he took the mic and he said to the warden, now picture your first deep interaction with Bhagwan. Now it was becoming interesting. We wanted to see what is the difference it is making to that antenna. And I'm not exaggerating. There is no need to make an impact here. As the warden, I don't know what is his first interaction with Swami, but he closed his eyes. He was deeply absorbed. Probably nobody had asked him all these years to think of his first interaction with Swami. And that might have charged up his inner being so much, because along with that first interaction come the memory of Swami saving you from a routine, rotten, conventional life. And that deep intensity with which he may have brought those visuals back, those memories back, that device antenna moved out of the dining hall halfway through the quadrangle, all of about 40 feet from where the warden was standing. And I'm not exaggerating this to you. And then because Inish, now I can describe it to you very easily, but we had no clue about what was happening there. We had no understanding what is it. Then Dr. Frank Baranowski came back and explained to us that as the warden brought those intense, very dear, soft, and very loving sights back to his mind, he recalled them. The antenna had moved all of 40 feet. And you can imagine what impact that had on a youngster like me and others who were sitting there. That when he didn't need to explain it, but he did. He said, when you visualize beautiful images like sceneries, lawns, rivers, waterfalls, your mind relaxes and yourself, your soul comes more into the play. But when you remember Swami with that intensity, you are absent. Your mind, buddhi, ahamkar, chitta, all just leaves having the uppermost play in your consciousness. And your Atmic self is manifest. And that is the significance of why we do satsang. Why you who want to listen to what happened to the Sai students, you want to listen what happened in the interview room to us. but there is that quality of the presence of the Lord that is being communicated. It may be my memory, but even to me, who is thinking 35 years back, it almost looks surreal. Did it happen to me? It is just some line in my mind that I got 29 namaskars from Swami. But the joy that I felt when I got those 29 namaskars, I have to try to recreate that. The pain that I saw when Swami is manifesting lingam from his mouth, I have not to think only that how the lingam came out. I have to feel that intensity that I felt that Swami, you are subjecting your body to this pain to inspire me and thousands who are seated here. It is not a showbiz. It is not a chamatkar. It is sakshatkar. You are in the best way possible, in the best, with the taking the best possible means for a limited body of flesh and blood. In fact, recently, Swami, I have read, Swami said, my body is not different from yours. My body is same, ordinary like yours. And then he said, my name, the name of my name is not Sathya Sai. In the Gita Vahini has described. He said, my name is not Sathya Sai. That is a name that this body has taken. So brothers, Swami, the core of Swami's teaching is little bit different from what you and I are used to seeing and absorbing from through the channels that we have been using so far, which is the ears, the eyes. We taste the vibhuti feeling on our tongue and we feel, oh, this is vibhuti. But when we take vibhuti, we should think, we should bring to our mind that this vibhuti is Shiva, the symbol of Shiva, which Shiva puts on his body to anoint his body. And where does Shiva sit? Shiva, so strange, he sits in the cremation ground. Lord Brahma sits on the lotus. Lord Vishnu sits, his feet are being massaged by none other than Mother Lakshmi. The moment we think of Mother Lakshmi, our bank account number flashes, right? Gold coins start flashing. But Shiva, what is he telling us with that vibhuti? When you apply the vibhuti here, nobody thinks that Lord Shiva is meditating in the cremation ground. And that is the difference between what happened to Lord Buddha, that Siddhartha, who was a prince, and us. So we have read the story of Buddha many times. In fact, recently on WhatsApp, somebody sent the story of how Raman Maharishi, whose name was also Venkatraman, incidentally, 3 weeks or 4 weeks before he left his home, he had this near-death experience. So we read that near-death experience. We open WhatsApp, we'll read it. Maybe out of the 4 minutes, 4 or 5 seconds, we'll be inspired. And then before the video is over, what do we do? What do we do? Forward it. Forward it. What is the meaning of forwarding? Forwarding means pushing it out of your own conscience, out of your own consciousness. The difference between Buddha, the difference between Ramana and us is holding on, building on it in our own consciousness, enriching our consciousness, not giving it to others. And Swami says, the biggest seva you can do. Yes, we do a lot of seva. We decorate the altars, we cook for the homeless, we do Narayan seva. But let's be very clear about this. There is no, we take out of the teachings what we like and we discard what we don't like. But what we don't like is the awakening part of the teaching. And if you go to see, I started with this, Priyam versus Daggara. Swami said, Daggara means close. And if you take a light candle, so many times Swami has said this on his own. I have not read this in any book. In fact, that is the wonder of the Sai teaching, that he taught in the most simple way. He did not teach in complex ways. Swami, one of the teachings that I remember about Swami best is, love is like ice cream. And I put my head down like this when I was in front of Swami, thinking, Swami, why are you making spirituality so common? Today, when I sit back after 30 years, I feel, oh my God, if I had only understood and held on to that at that time, when Swami said love is like ice cream, and he says love, ice cream melts with the warmth of the surrounding, and that warmth is the call of the devotee's heart. If I had allowed that to make me shed a teardrop, then that Gita statement about Patram Pushpam Phalam Tuyam would have been finished and consummated that time. I won't have to spend another 35 years now to go back and say, oh my God, at that time, you know, Swami, like he said, under the candle there is a dark region. And many times he said, I see Brother Hirok also joining. It's so beautiful. Hirok was one of my room leaders, one of the most respected individuals whom I held in such high regard. You know, once or twice I made the mistake after Brother Hirok sang in the bhajan hall. I went up to him because we were in the same room. And I said, Brother Hirok, you were so emotional in the bhajan. Were you crying as you were leading? And you know, Hirok is a giant of a boy at that time. He just looked at me and said, shh, you know, which means my love for Swami is internal. I don't want to show off. I don't want to display it. I want to call on Swami. Anyway, coming back to this thing that Frank Baranowski, what he told us stayed in my heart, because after we do Shravana, that is hearing, then we have to do Mananam, which is not dwell on the experience, not dwell on the words of the speaker, but dwell, have that pining. So this is the secret of our search. And you know, I read these 3 books by Swami Vivekananda when I was a student. And this was actually, you know, Swami used to say, Pata Vasana. Pata Vasana means old dispositions which you are carrying forward from your previous janmas. So all the students, like Brother Shastri said, you know, used to joke. I used to have 2 things when I went to the mandir, a mat and a book. And I used to roll the book up in my mat. And I read, I don't know, countless books of Sri Raman Maharishi. You know, I met devotees of Raman Maharishi later. And I said, have you read this book? And they had not read that book. And, you know, so under Swami's presence, that is the inspiration that we had to explore the spiritual literature. But we were going the long route to come back to Swami. We were going away from Swami to come back to Swami. And Swami many times told me this. I started by telling you this incident that when I had to speak in front of Swami, see how he gently nudged us forward. He was giving me a lot of opportunities, but I was going back to the hostel and I was reading these abstruse books about awareness and consciousness and Vedant and all that. This was my Patavasana, my old habit, which is not bad, but Swami wanted to lead me on the path of Bhakti. And the master knows what you need, what you have to do. And we cling to what we want to do. You know, we cling to what we feel we should do. And Swami told me, before I forget, I'll go into one other nuance. But Swami, I spoke, Lord, there were some 20,000 people. It was some big festival. Everybody clapped. But Swami, see, the grace is not that he asked me to speak. The grace is not that I was standing in front of him and speaking and I got 2 namaskars, I could give him the rose. That was, of course, a lot of blessing. But the grace was what came after that. In that crowd, so many people were there. He did me a very big favor. He said like this, called me inside the room. Then bhajan was going on. I couldn't hear anything. He's saying something. Then he took me in the private interview room. And in Telugu, he said, I'm not going to say it in Telugu now. He said, you spoke very well. Everybody liked it. Everybody clapped for you. But that was not my language, he said. And it was like breaking down internally because you want to align with Swami. This is where I was telling you, right? You go from attraction, which is just, you're attracted to so many things. You're attracted to the Benz car driving in front of you. Suddenly you see a Benz car, you are attracted to so many things. Swami is trying to take you, to refine you by attracting you, to drawing your attention. Your spiritual hunger, you came to some divine being some centuries back, maybe at the time of Moses or Christ or the time of Tulsidas or Meera or God knows when. And you told that divine being, please, please, I am again and again straying. I am again and again becoming wayward. When you come as the avatar, please tie me up. Tie me up like Mother Yashoda tied Krishna. You tie me. I'm telling you now. I'm giving you permission. Tie me up so that I don't again lose this opportunity. And Swami, by telling that word, but this is not my language, he tied me. So brothers, sisters, the manifestation of multiple lingas, even Swami creating the moon in his hand and the moon disappearing from the sky, the Vibhuti Abhishekam from an empty pot. As much as you like, you can stop the YouTube video and see that Swami never inserts more than his wrist. The pot is so big, but he never inserts more than his wrist. He's just doing like this, like this. Meaning the Vibhuti is coming from the hand, not from the pot. But how many times we will want proof of that? So the joy, the key, the source of the search that Swami set us on is not only dwelling on the Leela. And of course, it is very mesmerizing. It is very uplifting. But for devotees like you and me, whom Swami has signed that contract in that previous birth and said, no, 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 though you will stray, I will bind you. I will keep you. Every time you are going to leave, I will bring some message to you. I'll bring some awakening in your inner conscience. I will keep you. That is how he is moving us from Daggara, that is close physically, to Priyam. See what a beautiful word that two syllables are, Priyam. The biggest things in life are the most soft, are the most beautiful. Priyam ga undevadu. For Swami to say that I love you, we have to say, we start our journey with saying, you are mine, you are mine, you are mine. I was in the interview room once with Swami, and Swami said to one very huge 300-pound Westerner, asked him, what do you want? I was in the corner, and Swami said, Swami, I want to merge in you. So Swami looked at his own body and he said, Kani name chala loud. I'm very small, you are very huge. So Swami, through these very simple statements, would make us awaken. What was Swami telling that man? That you are very big and I am very small. He was not referring to his body. He was telling him that you got to cut down. You got to go back to fundamentals. To come to me, you have to make this journey. And then he went on to explain in that interview, all devotees start by saying, demanding. What do we say? Swami, my son is now writing this exam. You have to see him get through. Swami, we are your devotees. See what a big photo of Swami I kept. Not only here, I have one photo of Swami there too. That is the stage at which we command the Lord. It is also love. We feel very close to Swami. Swami, I know you. We write letters. Swami, you must do this. Swami, you should do this. Swami, please. But it is all a command. So we go from that initial stage of saying, Swami, you are mine, you are mine. We then realize the fallacy. And as we get that little bit of bhakti, by singing to him, by praying to him, something from inside tells us, oh my God, how did I say to Swami, you are mine? How can I even point to Swami and say you? I cannot say you to my beloved. And I then convert it to say, Swami, nenu neevadu. Swami, I am yours. Swami, I am yours. And then after some time, you start thinking, am I even an entity worthwhile? After having known Sri Sathya Sai Baba, who am I? Is it really worthwhile for me to think of myself as an individual? I'll be gone after few days, after few months. Do you think on Facebook there'll even be a message which says Ravi Mariwalla is no more? Even if there is a message, it may come 3 days later. Is the school going to close down? Is my company going to give a holiday? I'm not even that important. And I'm still saying, Swami, I am yours. And that's when we make the transition. We say, Swami, I made this mistake of pointing to you. I made this mistake of thinking of myself as an important individual. And that's when both of us become one. There is silence and there is a beauty, there is a joy in the heart. So now, because I'm making it so very, serious and abstract, like Brother Shastri said, let me take you to little bit of fun things, and then we'll come back again to some serious topics. So, one thing I was very fascinated as a Sai student is, oh my God, are there a number of different mudras that Swami makes, And I just love this slide because, like I said, many of these mudras you and I would not have seen. See this black and white one slightly towards the right, which Swami is sitting under the throne. And see the way he is turning his fingers. And brothers, sisters, just go to think, if you just ponder, if you see many great personalities, they all have, like Krishna, always you associate him with playing the bansuri, but you cannot figure out, was he holding his flute with the left hand first and the right hand afterwards? And was it on the left side, right side? Were his ankles folded which way? Which way was his, the dupatta falling? You can't figure out. But for Swami, you have no doubt. With both hands, he gesticulated. And if you can see in this picture, little bit to the left of the black and white. So this is the left hand in that mudra. And then you can see the right hand in the mudra. And again, you can see here the left hand in the mudra. But here you see him in some deep stage of absorption. And see this is the Maya. This is the thing that will hold us from going to that highest realization which we are seeking. Is that what was the state of Swami when he was making these gestures? He was not trying to impress. He was not trying to show anything. He was probably not even conscious of his body. And what is the proof that Swami was not even, and don't think that we students were very innocent. Many times when Swami came and sat, in front of me, we would be looking at him with a judgmental eye. We were evaluating Bhagwan. It is a human quality. If you are looking at me You'll be looking at how my hair are. Oh, Shastri, who knows me from 82 when I had thick hair, will notice that, see, this guy is losing hair, and Shastri will feel happy. We are all in the same boat. When we were observing Swami, I couldn't help observing one thing. And all of you should think like this. When Swami would come and sit, he would sit, and wherever he kept his feet, sometimes he would keep one foot outside the cushion. And in those days, there used to be a small cushion. Just like you and I keep behind the sofa, same cushion was kept as a footstool. That's all it was. He would keep left foot outside the cushion, right foot on the cushion. People were singing, people were observing. I was only looking at that. That is a naughty, mischief quality, I agree. But after 1.5 hours also, Brother Hero, Brother S. Kumar, Brother Hariharan, Brother Jagdish Rajan, all these great singers had sung. But I was observing only one thing, that Swami's left foot was down, dangling, and Swami's right foot was on, and he hadn't moved. And when I used to go back to the hostel and read those books about different saints and sages, I would correlate this and think, lack of body consciousness. These are the proofs that Swami was not just associating himself with that body. And brothers, sisters, this is very important for us to go to where Swami wants to take us. Why did I talk about the aura? Because you and I love this form, this 5 foot 4 inch form. You know, one day, I was standing behind the interview room door and I was holding some laddus. Swami, out of his love, he came and stood near me and closed the door, and he said, "Hey, Mari, you are not very tall, man." And it is true. I am just couple of inches taller than Swami. And Swami put his hand over his hair and said, "See, I am coming till here." And I wanted to say, "But Swami, that is with 3 inches of hair." You know, that is the familiarity he gave us. That is the love he gave us. He wanted to destroy that feeling of separation. He did not want for you and me to think that we are separate from him. So these mudras, that Frank Baranowski's measurement, these may have made us feel that we are separate from Swami. But I want to show you one picture which will make you feel that we are one with Bhagwan. Look over here. Look at how Swami, he is acting this out. Even Professor Nanjundaya, who is typically a very serious person, great man, he translated Bhagwan's lectures for so many decades. Look at how Swami is making his left hand like a mirror and acting as if he's a bride, you know, dressing up. And look over here in the lower picture. This is a picture where we played soccer. And you know, Puttaparthi, even if you are sitting, you will be sweating. You don't have to do exercise. You know, that was an advantage. We used to do social work, so-called social work, which is, you know, making the hostel garden, you know, digging up the Hillview Stadium. Nowadays you go to the Hillview Stadium, but that all credit goes to the Sai students. Before the tractors and the earth movers came, Swami made us dig it up and level it. Even that extension of the Ishwarama building into a stage, we had a hand in it, and what a grace we have that we participated in that. But you know, in Gita it is said, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, that the water that you offer should be your teardrop. But here Swami changed the meaning. You can see the water that we are offering to Swami is our perspiration. And there were actually our perspiration fallen on Swami's robe. We were all of 2 teams who had played with Bhagwan. And this is how Swami wanted to bring us close to him. You can see me down here, serious guy. Even after football game, he's doing salam to Swami. And you know, over here you can see, this is a beautiful drama we did. Sundarayar, you know, the great Sundarayar, he directed it. and I'm here. And then, I want to show you another couple of pictures. This is a picture of the beautiful time we had playing the band. You must have seen many such pictures, but these are heartwarming, because through the medium of music, Swami gave us opportunity to be close to him. And we used to practice for 16 hours a day, because we didn't have that much music sense as Brother Hariharan, Jagdish Rajan, Hirok, Durjeti and all. So we had to lot of practice. But sometimes Sai Geeta used to pass near us, and she would not react if we were playing some marches and all that. But then when we were relaxing, we used to go in front of Sai Geeta. This is something noteworthy. Some of us, we used to play some, I should not say, but some one line of some film song, that's all we knew. And Sai Geeta would not react. Then we suddenly tried a trick on her, and we say, ta 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 na ta na na na. And Sai Geeta, who was like busy doing other things, she would raise her trunk, and then we would be encouraged, and we would play other bhajans, and Sai Geeta would start swaying. And this was, see, lot of things people tell you about the spiritual vibration and all, but when you see a gigantic elephant swaying to the sound of a bhajan that is played in instrumental on a Western instrument, then you start wondering, what is the impact of the spiritual vibration that is coming to you? And we had many opportunities. You can see this beautiful dresses that Bhagwan stitched for us. There are so many stories around this. How he he had the measurement. Even Swami stood with us in the Purunja auditorium when the measurement for us was being taken for these dresses. And then when the dresses came, we were sitting in Prasanthi Nilayam, and then Swami had already gone to Purachandra auditorium. From there he sent word, and he said, where are those Dunnapotalu? Where are those he-buffaloes? And about 25 of us ran from from the mandir, and Swami said, why they are coming all around? Let them cut across the ladies' side and come. I said, Swami, 25 students go. And he said, I am waiting. Swami, see, these are the things that I hold most dear to my heart. Swami could not wait for us to go all around and come to Purachandra. These are the subtle nuances which tell you how much the Lord is pining for the devotee. It is not just that Swami had thousands of devotees and he was curing cancer and appearing in people's houses. No, no, no. For Swami, even now as I say it, I might not have that full feeling, but there is that feeling coming back that Swami could not wait to see us, to meet us, to work with us, to share with us. And this main task was giving us little bit elevation, trying to elevate us. And every time we would sink back to our patavasana, to our old disposition, and he would feel pained. And that pain, we would think he's angry with us. But actually he was pained that how many times I do it, even then they fall back. They go back, But before I go to that, I'll come to this. So we went to the Purachandra, we thundered like horses, 25 horses. The ladies were wondering, what are these boys doing? But we had Swami's permission. We ran straight to Swami. The Purachandra auditorium was a massive auditorium. Tailors were sitting there. And you know what? Swami was so impatient. He had no agenda. He was only dedicating that time to us. But he said, I'm waiting for you. What are you all doing? And then find your 25 dresses. They were all bundled up, such big, big dresses. We found our name on the collar. Then he said, what are you waiting for? You think this dress will wrap itself around you? These are the words he used. He said, go backstage and change and come. And then he said, no, 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 not all of you together. See his love and concern. So one by one you go, change and come. And each person, see the beauty of the event, see the beauty of the incident. Each person changed backstage. Swami was standing at the end of the Purnachandra auditorium, and he's putting his hand behind his back. And each boy changed and came down the steps of the Purnachandra auditorium. And you know what Swami said? Chudu, etla vastunaru, Sai Baba kindaki vaste darshan ivvadaniki atla vastunaru. These boys are coming down from Purnachandra stage as if they are Sai Baba coming down to give darshan to the devotees. And we started laughing because we could not but see the truth of the moment. That really saw, we were walking down. See, he gave us the chance for that comment. And then as we came close by, he said, oh my God, you are so fat that the tailors had to use all the cloth to make only your dress. Then he said to another boy, your pajama, your pant is flapping as if it is Sai Gita's ears. Means it was so loose. And then to another person, this little boy you see here, Rowan Patnaik, he had come from United Kingdom and he looked like a Westerner. He's an Indian boy, but Swami gave him so much love. And he told him, when he dressed up and came down, he said, you don't change these clothes. You go back to the primary. He was in the primary school. He said, you go back to the primary school like that itself and show all your teachers. See the sensitivity Swami was showing, that, your teachers are the ones who should appreciate how beautifully Swami has given you the dress. And then I spoke to you about the first meetings with Swami. So before my time runs out, I want to share with you, this is my first important meeting with Bhagwan. And black and white always tells its own story. One is, it tells you a little bit about your age. You're a little bit older people. But, in those days, Swami allowed us to put the garland around him, as you can see here. And I am that typical Mumbai boy. And, you can see. And then as I spoke about my experiences, how I lost the fear of the dark, how my grades improved. And see Bhagwan, how he's looking at me. Because Swami knew, it is written in the Bible that as in the first encounter when Jesus met John, when Jesus met Matthew, when Jesus met Luke, he knew a flash in his mind how their entire lives would be spent dedicated to Christ and how they would write the Bibles, how they would write the Gospels. And many times I feel that we were so fortunate that Swami's eyes fell on us and he knew this is the time when even I did not know that I would spend 9 years in Bhagwan's college. And I would never want to leave Swami's college. I would try to do course after course just to stay in Swami's presence. And then after my course, how did I know in 1979, this picture is taken, that I would get the opportunity, but almost lose that opportunity. But then Swami made me come back and join the hospital and then work in those haloed temple of healing for 14 years. But this is where it all began. And brothers, sisters, everything else in our life is ordinary, fleeting, passing. But these moments are magical. These moments, and I invite you all to try to think back as to what was your first meeting with Bhagwan. Don't think of Frank Baronowski and Lingams and Vibhuti Abhishek. Think of what was your first deep interaction with Bhagwan. For me, you will not believe it. He showed that grace. I didn't know at that moment that he's looking at me. But for years, for decades, as I see that Bhagwan's eyes are falling on this human body, Swami, that cosmic spirit who gave that, you don't know this, but in chapter 11, Vishwarup Darshan, after giving Arjuna that terrible form, Arjuna says, Lord, I worship you. I understand you, the rivers, the oceans, the galaxies, the black holes, everything is there. But now stop, I am overwhelmed. Come back to your normal form, which I love. And I don't have time to tell you now. I recently did a Gita Vahini session and I thought, Swami, you made me do Gita Vahini not for the audience, but for myself. In that chapter, in I think the second last verse, Sri Krishna tells the secret and he says, Arjuna, all those forms that I showed you through my Yoga Maya, you leave them. But this blissful, two-armed, see, he's making a difference between that countless arms and galaxies, this two-armed blue form that you are seeing now, which is with you in the chariot, because that was where we don't know, what cosmic form, how will it fit in the chariot? This blue arm, this is in the Gita, I'm not making it up. This blue armed form, which is with you, which is loving, which you recognize as your friend, as your cousin, which you just now told me you made a mistake by thinking of me as your cousin. Sri Krishna comes back as his cousin and he tells him, you cannot get this by Veda, you cannot get this by spiritual practice, you cannot get it by any other means except love and adoration for me. And brothers, sisters, that two-armed form who you are seeing on the throne there, that is the form that is our salvation. That is the form that is our salvation. Every inch of it, every pixel of it that you can see, if you can just stay with that. And Swami has said in so many discourses, and this is an awakening call, you are all doing sadhana in the wrong way. And he told us students, మీరు ధ్యానం చేస్తే మీ గుడ్డల దగ్గర మీ ధ్యానం పోతుంది. You are thinking about whether your dhobi, your washerman in the hostel is bringing your white clothes or not, because without white clothes you cannot come for darshan. Swami was our indweller. He knew those are our problems. At that time we didn't have bigger problems, whether my dhobi is going to bring my white. So don't do dhyana. Then he went. So that is what not to do. But what to do? In the 70s, there was this hippie movement. You can see there is a beautiful video of the hippies who came to Swami from New York, from Florida, and from California, Indra Devi and those groups. And they sat in front of Swami. They did like they protested. Swami was so busy running around, giving darshan. He performed that 65th marriage of different devotees. He healed Walter Cowan, and these Westerner devotees were getting a little bit restless. And they came to Swami and they said, Swami, when are you going to teach us some real sadhana? We left, we gave up our jobs. We don't have money, Swami. We are staying in Whitefield. It's cold here. Can you not tell us this secret of the sadhana so we can go back to New York and Florida? And Swami said, Rep Cheptan, I'll tell you tomorrow. And he escaped. Then again tomorrow they gherowed Swami. In those days students were not there. Students, we had that liberty at times, not all the time, to gherao. Gherao means to mob. Imagine, even in Sri Krishna's time, in Sri Rama's time, nobody had the blissful opportunity to gherao. Gherao means to surround, to mob Swami. And then Swami says that they gherowed Swami. He said, Swami, now we are not leaving you. We don't know what interviews you have to give, what agenda you have to make. You are telling us what is the secret of sadhana. And Swami said, okay. I am now your captive. You sit down, let me sit on my chair. Then he takes his kerchief, he wipes it, he says, I am fully yours. Tell me. And this is the biggest place where we missed Bhagawan. Swami said, I am yours. And we are asking him questions. That is like Mr. Kasturi has written that one day he made a resolve that I want the mantra from Swami. Why? Because all the other gurus of his, I want mantra. So he told Swami, tomorrow morning you are giving me mantra. He didn't wait for Swami to tell whether I'm giving you or not. He said tomorrow morning. So he bathed, he shaved, he was fasting. He sat next to Swami. Swami was eating breakfast. Then Swami pushed his plate and said, Kasturi, Tinu, em chestunaru? And there's idli, vada, sambar. Imagine. And Kasturi is looking at the plate and thinking, this is all worldly stuff. This is worldly annam, Swami. Naaku spiritual annam kavali, meer ivatam ledu. You're not giving me. And Swami is looking at him and thinking, Swami is like this, casually eating. And he says, Swami, mantra upadesham chayal, Swami. And said, mantra upadesham? Inka mantra upadesham kavali neeku. You now, after all this, you want mantra upadesham? And he said, Avuna, Swami, yes. Swami, enduku? Swami asked him, why do you want mantra upadesham? Swami, me daggar undali. Me daggar ki povali. I want to go close to you. And what does Bhagwan do? He nudges Kasturi with his elbow and tells him, Kasturi, inka enta daggarga ravali? How much closer? There are thousands, millions of devotees. You are here seeing me eating sambar and rasam and idli. Your elbow and mine are rubbing. And you are wanting to come closer to me. I gave you beyond your highest demand, beyond your greatest demand. I have given you what you could not have even imagined and asked. Even if people had coached you, you could not have asked that Swami will hit me with my elbow like this. And you know, Swami has done this funny thing with him one day. Swami told him, Kasturi, I have to take your picture. And he said, Swami, you're taking my picture? No, not now, Swami, not now. I should look better. I will wear my silk dhoti and come. And he wears silk dhoti and he puts silk shawl and he comes and Swami says, Kasturi, I'm waiting for you for 3 hours. Imagine Bhagwan telling that. And he comes inside the interview room. Kasturi's, shoulders are drooping, but he stands up and he said, Swami, I am ready now. And then he looks up at the interview room light and he says, Swami, can you lighting baledu kada interview room lo? This is the extent to which we are taking Swami for granted. And Swami said, Parvaledu, ee camera lo flash undi, Kasturi. Don't worry, camera has flash. And he tells him, Kasturi, ippudu smile cheyi. And he smiles. And Swami clicks that button and a big spring comes out from the camera and goes to Kasturi and scares Kasturi. And this is the way, and Kasturi is very disappointed. And Swami says, Tamasha. So if you and I had seen Vishwarup Darshan, at the end of the Vishwarup Darshan, Shri Krishna comes back. And that Vishwarup Darshan was only for those seconds or minutes. And all it did was terrify Arjuna. It terrified him. Imagine somebody begging God, please stop. And this is what happened when Swami told them, look at me, I will give you Surya Darshan. And he ran up the hill and they looked at Swami's forehead and all of them fell down unconscious. And then 3 days, Swami had to materialize Vibhuti and revive each of them. So brothers, sisters, you and I got that two-armed form of Bhagwan, who is most dear, who is most loving, who did all this tamasha with us, who did all these loving activities with us. Why? Because you and I, we can just get our redemption easily. Even if, I do with my kids after COVID hit, we said somehow we should not forget our Sai. So 2 boys and me, we sit at night and we do Ashtotar. By the time I reach the 106th name, I start thinking, Swami, my mind, how many times I stopped thinking of you. And I keep telling my 2 boys, look at Swami's eyes, look at Swami's eyes. But in my mind, I think, when I'm chanting 106th name, Shantamurtaye Namaha, then I say, I forgot Swami. And then 107th name, Om Shri Sai Sulabha Prasannaya Namaha. Lord, even though I forgot you 10 times in 4 minutes, what a useless devotee I was. You know, when Christ was in the last challenging moment of his spiritual journey, he goes up to that hill and he gets the covenant, and the Lord, his God, comes and tells him that you are going to be tested. He tells his 12 disciples, sit here and keep the watch, meditate, and all of them go to sleep. Many times I think same thing happened to me. Here is Bhagwan telling, be alert, be awake. And we are like, out of familiarity, just letting that opportunity go. So you and I got the opportunity to break these barriers. And just to go back to what I was showing you, these are the pictures, these are the memories that we can revive, where you can see it is not about me being in Swami's presence, but it is how he gave us an opportunity to be with that 2-armed form. You can see both arms here. And what is the other significance of this picture? See the date. If you do not believe, this picture actually has the date embossed on it. And this gives me a good segue, because many times when I spoke in front of Bhagwan and told some miracles and stories and all, you know what he would do? He would say, Chal Chal Ra Ippudu. Nobody could hear, the devotees could not hear. He would say, Ippudu hospital gurinchi cheppu. Means now enough praising me and telling my miracles. Tell these people about the hospital. And you will not believe, right here in this picture, we have the greatest miracle that was to unfold, which you and I forever will be unable to understand. That on April 29th, Swami is discussing the hospital architecture. If you blow this image up, you can actually see engineering drawings. And you can see that after this picture was shown to Swami, Swami was requested by our respected senior Colonel Jogarao to come into the side room where Colonel Jogarao and the warden used to reside. And Swami said, Endukura, Enduku. Then finally Swami gave up because we were all packed around Swami. Swami gets up and goes, and Colonel Jogarao takes him inside, closes the door, and tells him something. And all that secretiveness is useless because Swami opens the door and comes out. We are 54 boys. And he said, tells me, Em Annaru, you know what your grandfather is telling? Jogarao is joking, calling him grandfather. He is telling me that Swami, funds are not coming for the hospital. It is 29th April 1991. On 22nd November 1991, our great Swami, he said, 1 year from now, I will announce the completion of surgeries, heart operations. I have said this many times, but it really bears repetition, brothers, sisters, because, there is a height of an announcement that you can make. And, as Sai students, we had seen Swami in action. For us, he was our hero. For us, there was no question of doubting Swami because we didn't, our minds were absorbed in him. We never thought that, oh, he made some announcement We came out from the birthday announcement as if, oh, we clapped. For us, Swami was our hero. Swami said something, it will happen. But as we interacted with other people, we heard this doubt. And this is the human nature. And see, only when we look back, you can see that all human doubts are unnecessary and useless. And I'll tell you this beautiful story because this matters a lot, and I can tell you this from first-hand experience. So Swami made this announcement. There were 3 types of reactions. Some of the old devotees thought, nothing like that is going to happen. They will do some, pacemaker. And you know what a pacemaker implant is, right? Pacemaker is such a small device. You make a small incision here. You implant the pacemaker. You put wires connecting to the right atrium and the right ventricle. And they will announce that, see, this is how we denigrate our own institutions. And I'm not saying this in a negative way, but what the Sai institutions have achieved. Look at those colleges. Look at the committed people, the integrated personalities. Look at the type of research coming out of there, the authenticity of the material. You know, even my children, my kids are only studying 8th grade and 6th grade, but they tell me, Papa, in Swami's colleges, they actually taught you? I said, yes, of course. He said, but Papa, we know that here nobody teaches. I said, what? So we are so used to the original, genuine, simple, straightforward way. And we sometimes don't believe in ourselves, which is what we have to change. We have to have that type of courage to value what we are doing, to value our own institutions, and not to think that we are less than others. You know, every time we see some big name, we think, oh, why don't you and I think that, oh my God, this is a product of Sri Sathya Sai College. This is a product of Sathya Sai Vihar. This is a college of Sathya Sai School in South Africa. Wow, must be some blessed soul. And you know, going forward in that direction, I just wanted to tell you that as Swami made this difference between good and great, and that is the difference that is coming out. So, coming back to this theme, that one reaction to the hospital announcement was that they will do some small thing and say it is big. Other people said they will do 1 or 2 surgeries and then they will shut the hospital. As if to say, Swami is dependent on our charitable thinking that, yeah, they will do 1 or 2. See the cynicism, see the skepticism. These are all our patavasanas. And then there was the third group which says, Swami has said it, now Sai mission is going to the next level. Just you wait and watch and you will be surprised. And, you know, I'll tell you my personal story. Up until 1991, I had an ambition to do medicine. In my 11th, 12th grade, I threw those medicine books out. I said, no, I just want to stay with Swami. I saw what bliss there was around Swami. I loved that lifestyle. I just wanted to stay put. But when I was doing my MBA, all my old tendencies probably started overwhelming me. And I started imagining myself as a manager outside. And I started thinking, oh, now I'm doing MBA. I started reading those books, doing case studies, group discussions. Oh, these managers, they face strikes, they manage compensation, their own compensation is so high. I started thinking in those terms. And then suddenly Swami started calling me and brother Bharat Dutt, who's also in that band photo, and he gave us more than 40 interviews and some 10 interviews with senior brother Goldstein, Michael Goldstein. And he used to come out of the interview room and tell everybody, I'm going to send these 2 boys for training to US. And inside the interview room, we would joke, talk about our parents, fun things. And nobody knew that Swami is so serious about the hospital. But you saw that picture. 1991, when Swami was looking at the plans, there was no hospital. So all this played in my mind. And when Swami asked me, are you willing to join my hospital? Are you willing to join my hospital? I was like little bit neutral. Can you imagine? Bhagwan Shri Sathya Sai Baba asking you again and again. And this, brothers, sisters, is the confession I need to make. While you may be thinking, Ravi got 3 gold medals from Swami, Ravi stayed 23 years in Prasanthi Nilayam. First and foremost, what does Swami like? Swami likes us all accepting our, and not only accepting, repenting for our failings. That is the most important thing I want to tell you. We will fail, and we will fail many times. Don't attach value to the failures, but feel repentance for failing. There are many, many incidents that flood my mind, and I'm already straying so much. I don't want to lead you to explaining how Swami likes and rewards you when you have that inner clarity and inner cleanliness to repent for your failures. Failures, yes, but repent and beg forgiveness for your failures, because this Lord is so great and so high, you and I could not figure out who it was, because we saw that 2-armed form. We could not, because we didn't have that Yogamaya darshan, we are thinking this is simple form. But, and I repent as I feel how I troubled Bhagwan, that he had to ask me so many times. Finally, he sent word with Professor Nanjundaya. Ask Mariwalla, is he or is he not willing to join my hospital? This is the last chance. He came in the middle of my classes and he asked me, and even then my light bulb didn't flash. And that evening I went for darshan very casually. And I went into the mandir, and Khaldas came and called me and he said, Swami is waiting for you last 15 minutes. Where are you? And I went into the interview room. Swami was sitting there and he said, Kya socha? And see, we are lost in our own worlds. I was coming from college. I might have had some practicals or some group discussion in my MBA class. I was in my own mind. I walked into the interview room. Bhagwan is asking me, Kya socha? And I'm trying to think, Swami, kiske baare mein? About what are you asking? See, and the reason I tell you this is, what is the secret of our sadhana? What is the secret of our search? When we have Bhagwan, when we have Sai, and what does that mean today? When you and I feel that upsurge of inner bliss, that is the time to go deep and to commit. And when Swami asked me that, Kya socha? Suddenly that flash came to me, and I'm being so dull-headed. Swami, your title, Dunapota, that is he buffalo, which means dense guy. He is perfect for me. And then I said, Swami, I don't know what to do. See, even then I was holding back, sitting on the fence, so to speak. Swami got up from the interview room chair and he said, Hamara agya hai. Hamara agya hai. तुम्हारे लिए, तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स के लिए और कंट्री के लिए अच्छा है. See the kindness, see the spontaneity. He didn't give some big lecture, he didn't chant some mantra. He told me in simple words, Ravi, if you have invested your last 8.5 years seeking me, reading all those spiritual books, here is the crossroad for you. I am personally giving my grace. I am not doing so through some public announcement or YouTube message or I am personally giving you this opportunity. You have yearned for this in some past birth, that Swami, when my mind is taking me away from you, please bring me back. Somewhere you prayed and you are a lucky guy. Now I'm giving you this as my agya. And I don't know what grace it is. Maybe living in that sacred hostel, maybe having so many sacred darshans, singing wholeheartedly in the bhajan, touching Swami's feet. Somewhere it cleaned the dirt that I had got from so many lifetimes. And I dived at Bhagwan's feet. And I said, Swami, I have no doubt, I have no question. I am going to work. And there unfolded the next 14 years of my life, where I got to see firsthand what Sai stands for. What Sai is heart, which you and I can just recognize from the mudras. What those mudras translate, what that aura that Frank Baranowski saw, what it translates in practical terms. That aura, Swami was not waiting for Frank Baranowski to come and see gold and silver and purple and report it to people. You know, when Swami materialized Vibhuti and Frank Baranowski saw it, Frank Baranowski saw that the aura was not the Vibhuti was going to the child whom Swami gave the Vibhuti, but that Swami's aura was penetrating that child and changing that child. And brothers, that is what I got to see. That Sai, whom I hadn't even started to understand in 9 years, where I read all these abstract books of awareness and consciousness. Swami said, you studied theory, physics, chemistry, biology, and MBA. Now I will take you on a journey where you will see what my love means in practice. And you know, I have tried so many times as a naughty child to try to see whether Swami's statements are taken from anywhere else. But truly, he is Shiva, he is Krishna, he is Swami. You know, there was a big quarrel when Shiva created the Panchama Veda. Daksha refused to accept it and he criticized Shiva for it. In the same way, it took us so long to understand Swami's statements, they are priceless. Swami said one simple thing. He said, you came to me in the car of logic. That car of logic cannot help you navigate the sea of samsara. So somebody asked him, Swami, what are you telling? Car sea. He said, now you get into the boat of bhakti. See the beauty of the example? Car is useful to navigate some road, ford, all that. You reached me. Now you want to go past the samsara. Which car can help you drive in the sea? No, you need a boat. You need a different vehicle. For that, what you have to do? You have to step out of your car. Which means what? What is there in the car? In the car, there is security. You can lock yourself up in the car. You're safe in the car. Come out of that security. You trust me. That sea of samsara looks like pandemonium. It looks like chaos. But you sit in the boat of bhakti. There is no other way. Through logic, you came to me. The logic is what? In the Vibhuti Abhishek, Swami is only putting wrist inside. If the Vibhuti was already there, he would put his hand inside. And the moment he removes his wrist, the Vibhuti stops flowing. That is logic. That is a shameful analysis. And you know, Brother Raja Reddy has narrated this. One day, he was Swami's personal attendant. He was lying at the side on the floor, he was sleeping. And this is the mysticism of the masters, which you and I just have to, like Narada was mad, just singing of Narayan. That's what we have to do. One day, suddenly, without any warning, Swami says, hey Raja Chudu, if you see the light coming from my chest, you are a Shiva devotee. If you see the light coming from my chest, you are a Krishna devotee. If you see the light coming from my forehead, you are a Shiva devotee. And Raja Reddy, imagine that familiarity I had touching Swami's feet 29 times. Raja Reddy didn't realize what Swami is telling. After few seconds, he sees one dull light emanating from Swami's chest. So many years he has been sleeping in Swami's room. He never saw this light. In any case, that light stops after a few minutes. And then he goes to sleep, not thinking twice about it. That is the darkness under the candle. Irrespective of who it is, all of us Sai devotees, we have to be aware that familiarity is not letting us reach that pinnacle of spiritual wisdom that we can get if we worship Swami. That is the Gayatri Mantra. What does it say? First, that Tat Savitur Varenyam, I worship you as that big Savitur. Then I say, Bhargo Devasya Dhimai. Then I meditate on you. Oh, no. Just arranging the altar and worshiping. I meditate. You deserve my meditation. And then finally, I pray to you. I beseech you. Who beseeches? Beseeches is one who submits, who says, no, Swami, and now I understand fully. Nothing I can do. My spiritual practice is all done through the mind. The mind is the thief. I'm making the thief into the cop. I am got into this vicious circle. Please, you only show me what it is to go beyond the body and the mind. When we give up, when we beseech him, Bhargo Devasya Dhimai Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat, then we become silent because there is nothing to do. So coming back to this incident, when Swami told me, you work in my hospital, and we start, we went to Kodaikanal, we came back from Kodaikanal around 5th, 6th, 15th May. So we were very eager. 4 of our students came. We were passing where the hospital stands today. And we told the cab driver, stop. And we saw one metal fence. That's all. We were so disappointed. So we went back to Trai Vrindavan. And Swami was there. He called. He was standing on that ledge. And he called us and he said, what did you all do? You came back so fast. We rushed. We went at 3 in the morning and came back by 4 in the evening. And he said, what did you all do? See, he was so much in our lives. So I said, Swami, I kept all my Kodaikanal photos in Puttaparthi and came. He said, Dunna Pota, you are going to Delhi. He was going to send us to Delhi for training. He said, you should have taken those photos with you to Delhi. See, because we were going to be in Delhi in a different environment. And those Kodaikanal memories, he wanted us to take it to Delhi. Anyway, then he sent us to Delhi. And during that Delhi trip, he wrote us letters. And he stayed with us. And then we came back on November 4th. We went from June 15th to November 4th. We learned a lot of things. In fact, Professor Venugopal and other cardiac surgeons, Professor Venugopal was head of cardiac surgery of a 16-bedded ICU and 8 cardiac operating rooms. And you know what he told us students who were working with him? We were so serious. It's all Bhagwan's grace. We took all those big cardiac surgery books and perfusion books, and he called all the people who were doing their post MCH. They were doing residence, they were. And he told, if you had studied cardiac surgery like these boys from Puttaparthi are studying, you would have been such much better doctors. So that is the sincerity and the dedication that we were able to bring because we had gone there as Swami's messengers. But when we came back on November 4th, Swami would not allow us to go to the hospital at all. We were sitting there and Dr. Sathya was the director. He came and he said, boys, you got trained, you must come to the hospital. We didn't tell him anything, but we didn't go because Swami had to send us. Finally, on November 4th, 5th, Swami sent us to the hospital. And this is something for you to hear. When I entered the hospital, I saw 5 layers of civil work happening. In the corridor, the granite slabs were being laid. Little further, the false ceiling was being laid. And there was no staircase to go to the first floor. And I said, where is the operating room? This was November 5th. And they told me You know, the cath lab equipment has come from Holland, from Philips, that is being uploaded into the first floor from outside the building. And they have put some ladder. You have to go into the operating room through that ladder. I said, what? I had just come from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, very vibrant medical center. And I was like aghast. And that's the doubt started creeping into me. Doubts. Then I climbed up from outside the building and I went to the operating theater. And I saw over there that there was no equipment, there were no gas lines. There was one person fitting some air conditioning vents. And I said, where is the operating theater? And you know what he said? He said, welcome, you're standing in it. I said, what? This is the operating theater? You're standing in it. He said, I couldn't understand. And that morning, there was no canteen in the hospital. So we went back with the bus. There was some 7 or 8 of us, 6 of us boy students, and some other security and other people, Seva. We went back. And see, this is where I feel how divine intervention comes at the subtlest level in our hearts. Divine intervention was, number one, hamara agya hai. It is good for you, good for your parents, good for the country, Swami said. That was one divine intervention where he guided me to come. Don't think of a commercial life. Come, sacrifice little bit, work for Sai. Then my Abhayastha will always be with you. That was intervention number one. Intervention number two, all these worldly doubts had come from Delhi. I was like a Delhi boy. When we came, we were going to canteen. Swami came out on top. Till 1993, Swami stayed in the old mandir, for those of you who know. Came out on top. See, we think Swami is just giving darshan. Everything he is doing is for us as individuals. And we were so far away near the Gopuram gate, our bus had stopped, and few of the boys who were staying back rushed to the mandir. We didn't know what to do. We had to go back to the hospital, so I was a little hesitant to go. And then, seeing Swami standing there, something in me said, you go to Bhagwan. And I went there. And seeing me coming, see, each one of us has a little bit of time with Swami, you know. And those were the days in which he recognized us, he spoke to us, you know, that is his play. And he said, Kya da Mari? Just like all of us in US, right? We reduce our long names, we make it Raj or Shiv or something. Like that Swami, he made my Mariwalla into Mari. And he said, Kya da Mari? Hospital kaisa hai? And then he added quickly, Hamara hospital kaisa hai? Now my mind was in a complete quandary. Which is more important for you, Swami? You want a factual report, an objective report, which is highly colored with cynicism, skepticism, and Delhi culture that has got into me? Or do you want an answer from faith and bhakti? Are you asking me to leave my car of logic and sit in the boat of bhakti already? And before from my tongue I could utter those unsacred words and tell that Swami, I couldn't find the operation theater, I had to climb the hospital from behind. You know what he did? He said, he didn't answer the question himself. He said, Aisa hospital, dunya mein kidhar bhi nahi. That's all he said. Those golden words are still in my mind. And I am down and Swami is up there, that place where I have worshipped him. And it hit me intuitively. Swami, this is the way in which your subtle intervention makes us grow. And you won't believe that was 5th or 6th of November. On 16th, 17th November, Mrs. Sathya told Dr. Sathya, let us pack our bags and head back to Delhi because we have failed Swami. There are 4 days for the hospital inauguration. Prime Minister of India, Narasimha Rao, is coming, and the hospital is in no condition to get inaugurated. On 19th November, Professor Venugopal himself, great cardiac surgeon, walks into the operating room and he inspects the gases and he finds that gas pressure is low, and he makes so many discoveries and he comes out and he fixes all those. We have completed 2 cycles of sterilization of the operating room. And from this picture, where on 29th April, there is not even a fence, there is only architectural plans. We go, this is us coming back from our Delhi trip. See, Swami is asking how heart lung machine works, and we are trying to explain to the doctor of doctors, see in the mandir, how we are trying to explain Swami what we absorbed in Delhi. From that, we go to this site where you see the magnificent temples of healing were inaugurated. And you know, for me, the double bliss was that when I got this gold medal, which you see, I came to Swami. Swami makes the announcement after giving me the gold medal. And he asks me, I'm the only employee from the hospital who was in the hospital when the 4 cardiac surgeries happened. And Swami is asking me there, Etla undira mi hospital. How is your hospital? See, he's telling your hospital at that time. Later on, he changed it and he said, Mana Hospital, our hospital. But that day, first day of the inauguration, he gave us that pride and asked, how was your hospital? And I told Swami proudly, because I had to come to take the gold medal. It was from Swami's own hands. So I came back and he said, Swami, 4 surgeries successful ga ayipoyinayi. And I'll stop and tell you, you know, years later, great famous Escorts Hospital was inaugurated. And I'm not saying this in a trivial way. It's not that I'm trying to show that Swami's work is greatest. Just giving you a factual, analytical view. You take away what you like from it. Several years later, because the same doctors who came from Delhi, 1 or 2 of them joined Escorts, they told me. For 1 month, Escorts Hospital did 1 cardiac surgery a day in the heart of New Delhi. And Swami, see how we have to bow to him. Through us all individuals, he achieved the unachievable. You don't have to think of Vishwarup Darshan. You don't have to think how Sri Krishna taught Gita to Arjuna in the middle of Kurukshetra. You can see how Swami in Puttaparthi in 1991, when all the devotees and trust members were not willing to believe this idea that cardiac surgeries will be done in Puttaparthi where there is no water, not bad water and less water. First, there is no water. Then whatever water there is full of fluoride. Then there is no power. And if there is some power, the power is fluctuating. All these, you know, 1 heart-lung machine. After I left Swami's hospital, for some time I joined a commercial hospital for 2 years. I don't want to mention names. They will come after me and sue me. Their cath labs were failing in the middle of the procedures. And we, you know, some of the doctors from All India Institute used to call me, HSD and other brothers, hey, you are kid millionaires, man. You don't know the value. We were asking for equipment to be replenished every 7 years. And when I went to these other hospitals, 25 years they had used the same equipment. The equipment were failing in the middle of patient procedures. And the type of attention Swami gave, and don't think that came easily, that Swami materialized some notes of money. No, that is what Swami gave us as students the chance to see that it was not miraculous. It was through the dint of his grace, through individuals, through human beings, Swami approached these daunting tasks and delivered high quality outcomes. And then one day Swami called me in the interview room and gave me some small device. And he told me, he casually told, he said, go and talk to the patients and record it. And I did more than 200 patient interviews. You know what I would do? I would talk to the cardiologist, get the diagnosis, how serious is it. There's some fascinating procedures we were doing, complex. You know, we published a series of RSOV. I say we, I hope the hospital people don't mind. I'm not in the hospital anymore. I'm sitting here comfortably in US. But we did a ruptured sinus of Valsalva and we published it. We sent our paper to some journal and they rejected it. And in the rejection, they wrote that in the whole region of US, in 9 years, we saw some 32 cases. And you guys are telling that you got to see 17 cases in 2 years. It is a lie. It cannot be. And then we sent them documentary proof. And that type of rare cases, because the poor are dying, the poor were dying. And Swami gave me that small tape recorder to do those. See, everything he did is for individual transformation. When I interviewed those patients, and I'm sorry, I'm going over, I'm going to wind up now. I did those interviews. First, I spoke with the doctor. You know, that's the benefit of our analytical scientific mind. Then I spoke with the mother and the father. I interviewed them. I brought them to a room. I told them, I'm interviewing you. This is years before CNN and Fox News came. And then they told me their sob stories. One person told me that he wanted to be a chartered accountant, but that he was dying of rheumatic heart disease. And that after his surgery, he got that courage to enroll back and he completed his chartered accountancy. Another person, this was at the time of the Kargil war. And I said, what? And he was going for Kargil and he left, he's a military soldier. He left the mother-in-law and a 2-year-old baby for Fontan operation. Fontan is one of the most complicated surgeries. It is called TCPC, Total Cavopulmonary Correction. It is such a difficult procedure. There are a handful of surgery centers in India who will reject 90% of the cases and take up the safe. These are the cases we did. And when they went to Bhagwan and said, Swami, baka advertisement pettam about our hospital, he got furious. He said, I have not opened this hospital to advertise. And then they said, he asked, do the patients not know about our hospital? If the patients don't know, we will advertise. And he said, no, Swami, our waiting lists are huge. Patients are coming from Bangladesh, even from Malaysia, Nepal. From Afghanistan, we have had patients. Swami, there is no. Then he said, then why do I need to advertise? So if you and I want a glimpse into what is the secret of Swami's heart, that truly is the secret that I got to see. As a Sai student, I got to touch him, feel him. He took my letter. My father had heart disease. He said, call him. He rubbed vibhuti on his heart. And today, 35 years later, he still climbs 3 stories and goes to his room happily without palpitation. But that is the personal side that I got to see. That is the miracle in my own life that I got to see. But the miracle that I got to see, the continuous unfolding miracle that I got to see in the hospital is mind-boggling. There was one, and because I knew a little bit Telugu, my Telugu was awful, by the way, but little bit Telugu I knew, and these doctors, some were Gujaratis, some were Tamilians, some were, I want to mention this, some of these doctors, they came from north, south, they were so brash, and I'm not telling this in a bad way, they also know it. After 6 months working in the hospital, they were so transformed. They started asking us, hey, you guys studied here, you attended the bhajan, can you tell us a little bit more about Swami? And I saw the transformation, how Swami's transformation, see, wherever he touches. And this is what we have to realize, that aura of Frank Baranowski was in action. One doctor in particular, he was so rude to the nurses, to the doctors when he joined. And in 6 months, he had mellowed down. He was loving. And it made this statement to me. Say, I don't know what is it in this atmosphere that is making me look within, and I'm such a changed person. And you know, even after he went, he is now in some London hospital. He has written to me that I carry those sacred sweet. See, brothers, sisters, Swami's work, this is a awakening call for us. That we limited him to the one whom we saw and touched, and we gave I even gave Swami later years that, Swami, I want to take my car for servicing to Anantapur. And I gave that letter and forgot about it. And I went back home. I was changing from my white dress, and Sevadal came to my room, West 7C3, and said, Swami has come out for you. And all devotees had gone, people had retired, and I ran back to Mandir, and all devotees came. See, he said, he was waiting with the letter in the hand, and he said, Mari, nu Anantapur velte car servicing ki, don't go on Saturday. Take leave and go on a weekday, because a lot of people in Anantapur will come on Saturday. You won't get your car serviced easily. And that time it didn't, you know, in Hindi we say chamka nahi. It didn't, my light bulb didn't come up. We took it as a matter of right. Swami, you are mine. Swami, you are mine. I thought I am doing some seva for Swami, and Swami, you are mine. Today, living in the outside world, I realize if I had just changed my perception of Bhagwan, if I had mellowed down, if at that time I had started instead of waiting so many years, and Swami, I am yours, I am yours. What grace you are giving on me, that letter, that stupid car servicing, you are curing cancers. When I read books of devotees, I was sitting there studying chemistry journal outside. Inside, some devotee is getting their cancer cured. And honestly, I'm not saying this to create a rhetorical effect through oratory or something. I feel within my heart that, Swami, somehow you signed some contract with me, that though I am going to practice so much waywardness, you're going to pull me back. Thank God I'm still your devotee. Thank God you are giving me these opportunities. These devotees are wanting to listen to my experiences. So I have some forum to recollect and rejoice and, you know, bring out the value. So I want to stop by telling you, you know, I told you that you can't Google Swami's statements, right? This allegory, if you take, you come to me in the car of logic, but you have to climb into the boat of Bhakti, right? And then Swami told us all, famous statement, and you just see the applicability and the spontaneity of the statement. Try and Google it. There is no person who has said this statement. And that makes me marvel at Bhagawan. He said, duty without love is deplorable. Imagine if you do Narayan Seva and just throw the food at the person, or you see a nurse giving an injection and she gives it carelessly, there'll be a big boil, big swelling when you get the injection. You say, what type of nurse that was? Duty without love, we all accept that it is deplorable. That's the human standard we ascribe to even common activities. Do your duty with love. And Swami said, duty with love is desirable. It's just desirable. It's expected. It's a norm. But what did he do? And the reason I say this, You know, every time some opportunities I got with Swami, end of the month, Mr. Apparao, who was our chief financial officer, he used to take the account statement to Swami month end. And then in the many years, Swami as the chief trustee had to sign a check and give so that suppliers could be paid for heart valves, gloves, syringes, and then separate checks Swami would sign for our salaries. See, each of these things, why Swami did, so that the devotees who are giving their hard-earned money to Swami are fully convinced that every naya paisa is well utilized. Swami was so passionate about that. And at that moment, you know, when I have seen that, Swami used to tell Dilip and Sainath, who were inside Swami's Purchandra residence, he used to say, "Oh, Chudu, aina ucharu, apara vastunaru, na gunda labalabapotundi." Means my heart is palpitating. So, brothers, sisters, what is the meaning of that? Why did Swami tell that internally? Don't imagine that he just waved his hands and the architectural drawings in Kodaikanal became one brick and mortar structure and magically human beings appeared and did operations. No, you don't know the truth. Swami used to fly 17 people from New Delhi, even X-ray technician who is so lowly paid in India. Swami had to fly him. We were Sai students. We were running heart lung machine, cath lab, eco tech, and all that. We were like, oh my God, Swami is doing all this to keep the operations going. Because what will happen if patients hear that hospital is not running, they will stop coming. They are coming from far and wide. So we learned that we should have that type of thinking like Swami is doing. And for so many months, that continued. And then Swami started searching for his own surgeons, his own. Today, when you look back, you and I see established organizations. There is a nursing college, there is an emergency room, you know, all things are streamlined. But all of this originated from Swami's own personal attention. That's why he said, when I have to sign the check, my heart starts palpitating. Because, like Jogarao said, the funds were never there. And I used to work with Colonel Jogarao for 2 years after the hospital was established because there were so many repairs and the construction was done in such a hurried manner. We had to redo some things, but Swami was non-compromising. He wanted that date to be maintained. And that time, Colonel Jogarao used to be very friendly with me. I say this with a lot of regard, not to, you know, tell you anything negative, but Colonel Jogarao used to say, you know, Swami had one weakness. Every time he saw poor people, irrespective of how much money is there in the trust balance in the bank, Swami's heart would melt and he would promise projects for the poor. And I'm not exaggerating this because Swami came out from the interview room once. I was working in the hospital for many years by then. And he told me, like a kid, you know, saying it with glee and joy and fun, Telsuna Niku Mariwalla, Nenu Prasanthi Nilayam ko girvi pettanu. I have put Prasanthi Nilayam on mortgage. And Swami is saying this with a lot of fun and glee and joy. Imagine if you have to put your security on mortgage because you're trying to meet some commitment. And Swami, like a little boy, is going around the portico telling people, you know, I have put Prasanthi Nilayam on mortgage. Why? Because he signed up 100 crore rupee project. And Google it. Till today, that stands out as the single largest non-governmental organization, NGO project ever attempted. 3.5 million people were benefited by that. Swami had no responsibility. Nobody came and requested him, please set up a hospital. In fact, I spoke many times in front of Swami and said, after the first hospital, I'm pretty sure that Swami set up a model for Reliance, for the Tata Group, for the Birla Group to take notice and to say, what are we doing? We are commercial enterprises. Can we not attempt something even half this size? Can we not set up one operating room? And Bhagwan Baba, tired of waiting, and after 10 years, after 1 decade of waiting, he set up one more hospital and said, maybe now you will see I'm setting this up in Bangalore city, and some of you will see it and try to emulate my example. That is the story of Sai. He taught us, he took us through these stages of near and dear. He took us from the stages of just seeing him and marveling at him to learning that if we have to align with him, that attraction, attention has to lead to that alignment. That alignment means growing in his image. If his whole life was about sacrifice, his whole life, even when Swami was very, very ill, I had this opportunity of being in his residence. One day during the Akhand Bhajan, and I shudder as I say this, Swami was so ill. His body had undergone so many fractures. He came out at 12:45. I was happily sleeping. The lift door opened. Swami came out on the wheelchair. And he was keeping on repeating one thing to all of us. There were only 3-4 of us there. And at 12:45, devotees were doing bhajan. And this is what I said. For the sake of us who didn't see the early years where this must have happened many times, he knew that his earthly sojourn is coming to an end. He wanted to give. Nobody would be there thinking that Swami won't come after 9 p.m. At 12:45, he came out. This was in 2003 or 4. And you know what I heard him telling? This is what really has melted my heart forever. He said, devotees wait chestunaru. Name devotees dagra povali. He did not want to be in his room. He heard the bhajan and he said, I want to go to the devotees. And I heard subsequently from Brother Satyajit, Brother Dilip and others, when he was very, very ill, he was unable to get up. The human form had sacrificed itself so completely for the sake of the devotees. And you don't know when this started. In the 50s and the 60s, Swami used to travel in that Fiat car, an ambassador car, and openly used to tell the devotees in whose houses he went for lunch, Chala noppiga undi, Chala noppiga undi. And they used to press his knees. It's all there. I'm not making it up. He started sacrificing his life for you and me right then. He took the pressure of starting this hospital, this water project, not to make an impact, not to put Puttaparthi on the map. Those are not in his heart. He did this all so that you and I, when you recollect this, you will smile. And you will tell, oh, that was my Sai. And you will shed one teardrop. And then you will tell, if there is anything genuine in this unreal world, this world with Buddha sacrificed, though he was a prince, even though Buddha was not ailing, Buddha didn't have white hair, he sacrificed this life because he said this, Sarvam Dukkham Sarvam Shanikam. But in this world, we found our lovely Sai, who is the only true and beautiful thing. And we saw him through the years, through the decades, and he always represents the real and the wonderful for us. So I know I've exceeded my time quite a bit, and I got lost in so many, cycles. My mind started taking over through those memories. But I bow to that Sai, and I thank all of you for bearing with me and listening to my various diversions. Sai Ram.
Can you just complete the two more A's? We are only at attraction, attention, and alignment. What are the other two A's?
The next one after absorption is, after alignment is absorption. See, just like, you know, if you see the story of, I'm just showing you that slide, so it will stay in your mind, you know, just bear with me for a second. So if you see the story of Hanuman, if you see the story of Hanuman, when Hanuman was asked to go in search of Mother Sita, he actually did not accept Ram. And when he accepted Ram and he chanted Rama's name, then he found all of a sudden that he is able to jump the 26 yojanas, and he went. By accepting, then very soon he got another test. And Swami has written in Ramkatha Rasvayini, very sweetly Swami has written, you should go and read that. He says when he is looking here and there for Mother Sita and he can't find her, on one door, you know, just like we have Mariwalla written on our door, Swami has written this in Ramkatha. He found the name Hari written in ornate letters. And then when he went close to that door, he heard the chant, Ram, Ram, Ram. And then he takes the form of a priest and he lands near Vibhishna. And he asks Vibhishna, why are you chanting the name of Ram? And he pretends that he's some Pandit from Lanka. And Vibhishna tells him that I am pining to see my Lord Ram. And then knowing that it is safe, he takes back his own form. This is narrated to us by Swami. And see how naughty we were as kids. You know, so then Vibhishna is thrilled. And he says, Hanuman, the great Hanuman, you're always with Ram. Can you please tell me how I can have Ram's darshan? And then Hanuman says, see, your neighbor is Mother Sita. She's crying. She's not eating. She's in the sun. For a lady to be in the sun 24 hours. But you are not bothered about her. And here you are worshipping her husband. Isn't it right that you do something? So Swami said, Ram ka naam, Ram ka kaam. Beautifully he said it. And you know how naughty we were? We asked Swami in the interview room, Swami, did Rama give some coaching to Hanuman? Hey Hanuman, when you go to Lanka, you will meet Vibhishana. You tell him like that. Is he trying to give his message? Is he the carrier, Swami? And that's why I got this word alignment. Swami said to us kids, see, Hanuman had started to develop that Rama consciousness. And he had developed that alignment with Rama so much that without consulting Rama, he could say the right thing even to a great king like Vibhishana. And that has always stayed in my mind, that there is no other example of alignment which Swami is willing to teach us. See, Swami is telling us you take that example is exemplary. You take that example. Means you can talk on behalf of the Guru. You can reflect untainted, correctly, not what you want, not what you have read in the books, but you reflect the right teaching of the Master. And that is what Phyllis Crystal did. Just go to analyze the situation. Swami, like Rama didn't tell Hanuman, tell this to Vibhishna, but he told the right thing. And see, that changed the course of the war. Vibhishna got awakened. He came to Ram. When Rama was fighting Ravana and his heads were falling off, but he was not dying, he's there at that time to say that the Amruta Kalasham is there in the Nabi, in the navel, and you aim at that, Rama. See how one event led to the other. So if you and I want to be true instruments of Swami, see, devotees, students, disciples, these are all through, like, we made it like a profession. But we have to become reflections of Swami completely. Swami should say, I am reflected in Ravi, I am reflected in Shastri, I am reflected in Venkatraman. Then I can relax. And that alignment was what Phyllis Crystal got. One day before she was in Brindavan in the interview room, nothing Swami said. He gave her Vibhuti Prasadam, Namaski, sent her off. She's sitting in that plane, it's hijacked. And they're going to blow up the plane. And this stands out to me that because there are such few examples, that lady Phyllis Crystal, she was so short. She has herself said that I used to be scared to talk to two people, and Swami has made me talk to 20,000. And in that plane, her husband is telling her, shut up, Philip, shut up, Phyllis. And she's saying, I'm going to call on Swami and I'm going to reflect his love in this plane. And those hijackers are smoking, and just the ember from the cigarette can blow the detonation devices that are hanging from their shoulders. And this small, slight woman has gone not just from seeing auras, but to calling on that divine energy in the plane and then reflecting it out. She acted like a prism, multiplying the Sai love. And those hijackers look at her and tell, what are you doing to me? What am I doing to you? I am acting as a channel for Sai. So if we get that alignment, after we have that acceptance, from attention, we have to have the acceptance. That acceptance cannot be inactive. We have to, and with that conscious acceptance that came to me when Swami, see, why did Swami said, Hamara Agya hai? Because he felt that I will follow it. If Swami has to tell Agya, I am giving my Agya, he should feel that, yes, this guy is going to follow however difficult it is. I'm giving you my Agya. So I had, in some humble measure, I had accepted that no, I was on the fence, my mind was straying, but if Swami said I will do it. So 14 years I was able to serve there, just it is his grace, I take no credit, but that acceptance is required inside our heart to be firm, that conviction should be there. Then slowly, like Phyllis Crystal and like, Hanuman, we will see the benefit of being aligned with Swami. Not worldly benefit, not worldly. We have to be very clear. If we are thinking we will start successful startups, we will be like Steve Jobs, we will be like Warren Buffett, let us not go that route. You know what Swami is doing now? Where is he? So beautifully explained to us. What is the true meaning of Yogakshemam? Yogakshemam is not, they translated that Yogakshemam means our bank won't fail. We put the money in the bank, but the bank itself fails, what will happen? If you do trading in Robinhood, now there is news that some Robinhood accounts are not working. Carvi, anyway, in India, it is defunct, right? So what is Yogakshemam? Yogakshemam is not Swami sitting in your bank locker and holding the gold bars for you to come and, no, sorry. Let's be very clear about it. Let's be open, let's be courageous to make this statement. Swami said, Yogakshemam means I am going to ensure that the spirituality that you gained, the spiritual progress that you made by committing to me. You were in Mumbai. One day he told me, you would have become a street dog. He didn't mince words. And I'm so grateful. I don't like the Western way that, you want to say something, say it in 20 sentences and not communicate the meaning. Swami told me clearly, Ravi, you would have become a street dog in Mumbai. He told me that. And then he said, but I will make you a street light. And I don't need to think street dog to street light. What is street light? What does it? I don't need to think. That is the meaning of entering the boat of bhakti. We have to learn that acceptance. See, attraction is his job. He is the magnet. Attention, he is taking our attention. Our attention is diversified, money, partner, divorce, child's marriage. It's going to go on. He has done the work in the first two phases. Third onwards is our job. He gave us the glimpses. He showed us all the miracles. Now accept first. We all accepted. I'm sure all people in this forum have accepted him. But we have a journey to make. We have not to think in terms of words and argument, but we have to understand what Swami said. You are doing sadhana with the mind. And even Vivekananda said this, that all spiritual people will go into yoga maya, into yoga nidra, because you'll keep doing bhajan, you'll keep doing Narayan Seva, you'll keep doing Seva, but you have to incisively investigate. Swami said in Gita Vahini, I am the answer to you. And Hislop translated so beautifully. He said, the answer is the questioner. So now you will say, Ravi, why you are throwing more riddles to us? Because this is the problem with all of us. We thought that by going to Puttaparthi, by Swami is helping us to put apart the I. Yes, that was his job. But now you have to actively seek that alignment. You have to pine for the inner. That is what I am seeing he's doing with all of us. He's giving us that joy only when we are associated with his memories. And that is the guiding light to say that, hey, there is something within me that is giving me that joy. That is the memory of Sai. So I am the truth of you. I am the truth of me. Sorry. Swami said in Gita Vahini, I am the truth of me. So we can't get the answer in this Zoom meeting. This Zoom meeting is going to help us to go back and feel inspired. Oh, we have to seek alignment. And why this alignment? Why alignment? You know, Swami's narrated beautifully, and he sang that there was this Gopika who got married and came to Vrindavan 3 years after Sri Krishna left and went away. And she was so unhappy. And there was this practice that every evening, it's a village, like Puttaparthi village, right? The poor people would go to the chieftain's house and symbolically light the lamp, their torches, physical fire, from the lamp in the chief's house, just to feel that, you know, we are connected with the chief. And that evening, when Suguna, this Gopika, goes to the Yashoda's house, and as she's in Yashoda's house now suddenly this memory has started coming. Oh, this is Yashoda's house. While she was in her own house, she had not remembered Krishna. Now she's in Yashoda's house, and her imagination comes, and she says, oh, this is the place where Krishna must have broken the pots. This is the place where Mother Yashoda must have tied Krishna with the 2 trees. And while holding the torch, she keeps on imagining. And that is the imagination we want. Right now we are imagining all our things. But she imagines. And then Swami sings that beautiful song, which I will not try to sing. But he says, Sugunaku kanipiche danta, Nanduni inta. That is in the house of Nanda. They say, this is our Gita, that Suguna was able to see Sri Krishna. And if you and I have to see Sai now, look at this beautiful picture, that absorption that you and I are hoping for. We started this journey sometime in the past. You know, somewhere we started that journey in our own contact. Like I started it here. You have to think where you started your journey. And let's not make this a journey. This journey is going to have fulfillment when we pray to Swami, that Swami now show us that secret, that inner secret, so that by the time we end our lives, we have got that complete absorption in you. I'll stop with that, brothers. I'm so sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry. It's just absolutely amazing. I'm sure everyone has. How do I say? Words fail me. There's nothing much to say. Wish we had more time to continue. I can see that every thought process triggers to that acceptance, to seeing from where everyone has their self-doubt coming in, and then how he positions us to accept. And then when we jump into that boat of bhakti, then the process starts. It's getting onto the boat is the difficulty when we get attracted to the two hands form, the friend or whatever we want to call him, in close proximity. I have, Brother Hirok, would you like to say some closing remarks?
No, I mean, see, Ravi. I've seen Ravi from when he started from in the college. So I always used to observe that he used to be very deep in his thinking. So I think that depth came out today in the talk that you had, and one of the things, yeah, and one of the things which Swami has always been emphasizing with us is that you have to have the acceptance. I think there is some background noise. Acceptance is one of the things which Swami always emphasized on. And one incident that comes to my mind is Ravi. I don't know whether you were there in that Bhajagovinda, but we had this Bhajagovinda, and then Swami used to come for the practices very, very regularly. And we used to wonder, why is he coming so often? And we used to keep on repeating the same thing. And then on the day of the drama, okay, I went and told Swami, mere ka padali. You only have to take care of us. It was not let's say, it was not a statement which just came out like that. I actually really felt that, Swami, you should take us through, because there were a lot of challenges in the thing. All of us were not actors, but then we still, because Swami wanted us to do that drama, we did that. And so I went and told Swami, please, mere ka padali. See, he has been coming to our practice. He has been telling us this is what you do. He got all the clothes, everything he only gave. But at the end of that, again, we went and told him, Swami, you only have to take care of us. And when I told the first time, Swami, yem chapnao. Then I told Swami, mere ka padali. That time he heard it. He basically wanted to hear it. That's God, right? He wanted that acceptance, that surrender from us. He was, literally craving for us, craving for that surrender. And this is what he craves from all the devotees, right? And you brought that out very well, Ravi. Thank you so much for this thing, for bringing out so much. I knew that there was a lot of knowledge which you have, and you can actually talk to us on more on the knowledge that you have done, the study that you have done, because I used to see you in Puttaparthi also. None of us did that. Jagdish, Rajan, or me, we never used to be so studious like you. But thank you very much, Ravi.
Thank you, Brother Hirok. So nice to hear your voice after so many years. Always looked up to you so much.
No problem.
And Brother Ravi, I remember one incident which Swami had told about losing hair. Right? He has said that the positive way of thinking is to gain face, not losing hair.
Yeah. Yeah. But my kids, they remind me every day. So I can't avoid that, which is good in a way, keeps you a little bit level. But yeah, it's the acceptance again.
And also remember one more thing, Ravi. See, Swami had to interact with all sorts of students, right? There were people who used to be cynical. There used to be people who had to be convinced. There were people who used to accept Swami just like that. He convinced all of us, right? Everybody, without exception. He gave the due attention. He knew how to interact with each of us, right? Yeah. And that's not something which I would actually emphasize too much upon, because I believe all of us, right? All of us have a very different relationship with Swami. Like whether you have come in close contact with Swami, or whether you have seen him physically, or you have just heard of him, all of us have got that. But Swami knows exactly how he has to interact with you.
Yeah.
And how he will get the best out of you. That's something. And he does this with so much of love, with so much of this thing, like, why should he do that? Right? Correct? It's just that we being students were privileged to interact with him closely, but everybody, all of the thousands and lakhs of devotees who used to come, right? Swami used to have that relationship with everybody.
Yeah.
And he has that with everybody.
I
So
think
true.
the messages the last 2 weeks, there seems to be a chronology. Last week's message that came across was this: all of us are attracted, and he brings us to the feet.
Yeah.
Do we remain at the feet, or try to go that 4 feet up to the heart? That was the message of last week. And I see how beautifully is connected with the 5 A's, where the first 2 is his role, the next 3 is ours, where we have to move from the car to the boat. I think the answer for that is, yes, coming to the feet is the car, but then going from the feet to the heart is the boat. Are we up for it? I think I have no way of describing the feeling of how he connects and gets a chronology into these satsang sessions. And I hope that it inspires all of us to go beyond the attraction, to do something in our own little ways wherever we are. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for us. Thank you so much, Brother Ravi. It's been time has just flown by, and it's been so wonderful listening to you. We'll finish with 21 Samastha Lokas. I'm going to mute, and then I'll leave that. And until next week, I have no idea who the speaker is. You will get to know when I get to know, when he decides who the next speaker is for the week. So until next Sunday, Sai Ram, and we'll finish with Samastha Lokas. And thank you so very much, Brother Ravi, again.
You're very welcome.
Samastha Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. 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 समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु 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 समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की
जय।
साई राम
Sai Ram, Sai Ram.
साई राम।
Sai Ram.
साई राम।